it's all in your mind, the
Mind.
perception of age. And
we were talking about this just before all of y'all came on. Is it's all mind game. It's all what you tell yourself in your head, and we will, and I'm gonna cuss, Sixto, you'll just have to forgive me, but we will mind fuck ourselves right past the age that we're in, just because, like what I did with my dress. Oh, I'm too old to wear that dress. No, that's me mind fucking myself.
Absolutely. And it's also society's view. It's not even, you know, we're talking about what we see, the perception of TV and magazines, or even our neighbor saying something to us, rather than, well, I look good in this. You know, I've worked hard to look good in this. I go to the gym, or I eat well, or, you know, I look great in this. So damn everybody else and what their thoughts are, you know. But that's how most of us live. So it's hard.
Well, there is this idea, and that's actually a question, is, you know, did we have this idea that our life would be over by a certain time? You know, like you talked about your dad retiring, and then you were like, he was just basically waiting to die. And you know, it's interesting too, because you said you lost your mom at a young age. She was young and you were young, and my husband lost his dad at a very young age. And then when he passed the anniversary of his dad's death, it was a strange experience for him to, like, you know, I mean, it was an accident how his dad died, but it's just this idea of, you know, how you're still living. Is my life, you know, when I retire, am I supposed to just be done? Where do I go from here? And like we said, Hollywood just kind of says, oh no, you're in this category now. You're going to start playing like older roles, grandmas and queens, or I don't mind playing a queen anyway.
I was just like, I'm down for the queen.
Yeah,
I'll be a queen. A queen.
Yeah.
A queen. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I agree. I have been actually once I hit 40, and my spiral out was, my parents had me at 40 and my sister at 43. So my mum passed at 58. So all these stages that I've passed, I've gone, well, I should be having kids now. I should have a family now because I'm single. I don't have children. I think that's also to do with why I don't age. I'm not stressing about these little ones out here. So, yeah, as I'm getting closer to 50, I'm like, oh wow, what were my parents like at this age? And they definitely weren't doing what I was doing. So I feel that I'm just taking on their, and also my perception of what 50 was like when I was a kid. And remember when you were a kid, 50 seemed old.
Oh yeah.
50 seemed really old. And now I'm 3 years away from it. I'm like, oh, it's not that old. We're good.
I remember when I was in high school, I said, oh my God, you know, when the year 2000 comes, right?
Yes. Oh yeah.
40.
Flying cars.
40.
We'll be going to
crazy.
Space. Yeah.
And I've never really had an issue with age, but again, I gotta tell you, probably when I hit 60, there was something there. But not because it mattered to me the way that I looked or what I represented, but maybe because you're now thinking the biological clock kind of thing. And I want to do all these things. Am I going to have time to do them? But you know what? It's also relative. We can't, you know, we just have to just live for the day, really. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I've had that talk with the biological clock and going, well, now I'm 27, there's just, I mean, I can always have children because I can adopt, or I could marry somebody who has children and be a stepmom. So, but coming to terms with not being able to carry a baby and go, well, what is womanhood? What is, I think that's what I was supposed to do. And having real big talks with myself and going, but if I wanted it really badly, then I would have worked really hard to get it. And I don't think I always said I wanted kids, but clearly I always wanted to live in LA and be an actress more so than I did wanting to have children. Because I was like, I don't want to be a single mother. That's too difficult. I know I can't do that. I mean, I could, but you know, I was like, I can't do that. It's too difficult. And I salute every single woman who's had children by themselves and done it, because I see women do it and I'm like, I don't know how you do this. I can't look after me, let alone me and providing for a child. So coming to terms with that has been the big thing about the biological clock ticking. But then you get there and then you're like, well, now it's too late, possibly. So how are you feeling? Sitting with yourself and having that conversation and going, but what have you made with your life? What have you done? What have you experienced? I think those are the most important things.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I know for me.
I did the single mom thing, and for the first 40 years of my life accomplished nothing. I've accomplished more in the last 6 years with them grown.
Wow.
Than I did. So yeah, they will drag you down and suck the life out of you. I love my I do. I love them, but they suck the life out of you.
Now, for me, I never had any biological clock ticking. I never felt that was my role. I have 3 siblings and they all have children, and I'm close with all of them. And of course, they live in the Midwest, where they feel that, you know, their purpose in life is to populate the earth. So, you know, between the six nieces on one side and their kids, each having 6 kids, it's like, you know, it's more than enough. But you know, Ernie has 4 boys. And I had always said that, you know, it would be great to be able to adopt. And I actually, both of us got involved in helping mentor foster kids, because the foster children that are out there, especially when they reach the teen years, they age out so quickly, and so much of them, you know, they go through such trauma that to be able to offer some place for them to come has been very rewarding. So, you know, as far as having a child, I always, you know, I felt that I could probably do more for a child that's already in existence than bringing another child on this earth, because frankly, I think we're a little overpopulated. Yeah, I mean, not having children was never a big thing. You know, no clock going off. Then, you know, I have more to give, I feel, to adopted children and children that are already on this earth and need somebody to love them and support them. So that's kind of where I am.
Well, and on the heels of that, you know, Mia and I are just generating machines on content. And one of the things that I want to talk about in a future Diva Talk conversation is this idea that women have to procreate. Women have to bear children in order to feel maybe that that's their life's purpose. And when they don't, you know, what does it mean? And to me, I feel like a career. You know, right now I have 3 fuzzy cats, and they are my husband, and that's my family. You know, this is the family I've created. And let me tell you, the cats will suck the life out of you too, because I have a sick little kitty right now, and it's very expensive and it's very hard emotionally. I can't even imagine having a child, because I would be like, oh my God, you're never leaving the house ever.
Yeah.
Because I just am so overly concerned even about my pets.
Yeah.
So I would probably be a terrible parent. No, I've always thought the same thing, that I could adopt age appropriate based on, you know, where I'm at in my life. But I've known women who have had children older, and while it can be potentially dangerous, they've had healthy children and had healthy pregnancies. But you don't have to have a child in order to feel that that's what your life fulfillment is to be. We have so many other values and things that have come out of us that we've given birth to.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't think it doesn't have to be from our, you know, it doesn't have to be from our womb in a human form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agree.
Yeah, and it's interesting because my siblings will be the first ones to say to me, well, you don't know what it's like because you've never been a mother, but I have been a mother.
Yeah.
And I can put some of that emotion aside, especially when you're dealing with a child who's gotten in trouble, or whatever, the difference between right and wrong, so much of the time off for somebody who's dealing with their own child that they birthed, they can't put that aside. They can't put that. They're always going to come and bail the child out, regardless of whether it's the best thing for them or not.
I would have said, I'm married, so therefore I'm a mother.
Well, and it's interesting because I'm actually probably more of a mother to several of my nieces and nephews, because my brother's kids, their mother was the worst mother ever. And my brother had custody, and he got himself into some trouble. And so while they were, while he was gone, you know, I was very, very close with them, and still am to this day. So,
yeah.
Well, you've always had a lovely maternal quality to you. And I think it's why I was drawn to you initially and how we became friends. And, you know, and I have 3 older sisters. So I feel like I'm always kind of drawn to somebody who's older. And it's weird because I've always had like older friends, and now I'm starting to have younger friends and I'm the older one. I'm like, what happened here? To be the youngest.
Well, you know, and you know, we talked about the younger group, a younger age group. I don't tend to meet very many young people who have much to share or are interested in knowing what I have to share. That's a kind of interesting thing. I do see it with some of the young people that work at the senior center, because they are dealing with more older people, and they seem to thirst for what knowledge the seniors have to share. Because I mean, there are things that they've gone through that we'll never go through. But it's a great way of being able to learn by their experiences.
We had a fabulous guest on the show, Hisayo, and her daughter Grace. You know,
Grace.
She's going to be 100 in October.
Wow. Wow.
Right. So talk about life experience. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I often ask my parents, I'm like, because they've seen a lot. I'm like, okay, you know, like during the election, and I'm like, you guys have seen a lot of stuff, you know, assassinations and crazy politics. Like, I want to know, like, what's the craziest thing you've seen in your lifetime, and what can you say about it? And I definitely revere what my parents say, but I probably did not feel that way when I was younger, because you know, you're a snot when you're younger. You're like, you don't need to tell me anything because I know it all.
Yeah.
I mean, is your daughter like that, Mia?
No, not anymore. She was for a long time, but her and I did a lot of work together to kind of build that communication and that respect and understanding for one another. So when I tell her something, you know, she doesn't always implement it right away, but I have noticed that a lot of times she'll turn my advice back around on me. And, you know, I'll be talking to her and be like, well, I'm going through blah, 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 blah. And she's like, Mom, this is just a bad moment. This will pass. It's going to be okay. Everything changes in 2 weeks. Just give it 2 weeks. That's my favorite thing to say. And she'll throw that back at me. So she does listen. At 20 years old, she really does. And I was just chatting with her today, as a matter of fact, and telling her, you know, just do some breathing and try and take a moment to calm yourself when you're feeling angry. And she's like, okay, I'll try. So she does listen now. Now, however, when she was 15, 16 years old, she didn't want anything to do with anything I had to say. It took a lot of work to get to where we are now.
Wow.
It's all development. It's all development. All development.
It really is, yeah. Because I was the same with my mum. I remember, and I can't remember what we were arguing about, but she was sitting in the bath. I wanted to go to a party, and I wanted to stay until the birds came up again. And Mum was like, no, you're coming home. It's going to be 11 o'clock. And I had a the hugest drop, like screaming, shouting, jumping all over the place. And she was just in the bath watching me go through this whirlwind of emotion, crying, screaming, shouting, until the point where I don't know, must have been a moment where I caught myself and I burst into tears. I was like, I don't understand why I'm like this. And she's just like, hormones. But you're still coming home at 11. So it's up to you what you do with that. But same thing. I thought I knew it all. We all, yeah. I knew it all. You can't tell me about my friends and what goes on. Mum was like, we've all been to parties. We did this. We also
Right.
have arguments with our parents. They can't see that when you're that age.
Well, and I think also, I think part of why my freak out before I approached my 50th birthday was, and of course we're in quarantine. We're having our birthdays in quarantine. And I was like, come on. I don't want to have my 50th birthday during quarantine. I made all these plans. I was going to travel the world and go to India, and none of it happened because of the virus. And I could still do these things, right? There's nobody saying, sorry, you can't go. It can only happen in your 50th year. Like parks closed. You can't define like 50 has to be this. I mean, what am I going to do now from 50 moving forward? That's the question. It might not happen in my 50th year, but it might happen at 51, 52. And the thing about that too is that I think that we have to have like maybe a certain amount of our stuff together by a certain age in order to feel like, okay, well, I'm accomplished now. Or, like, again, there's the question, should I be starting school? Sixto got his PhD last year. PhD. Yeah. That's amazing, which means he got his master's already. So, again, it just goes back to this idea of it's this mindset that we have of where we're supposed to be in life when we can just create it at any time.
Well, I want to say this on that note too, because you have this mindset of you think you need to do this at a certain age. Maybe when that doesn't happen, it's something better is going to happen instead. Because I celebrated my 45th birthday in quarantine, and I had big plans for 45. Now, mind you, it's not 50, it's not 60, it's not that big milestone, but I will celebrate myself all month long. I don't care. I had big plans for 45. I was going to marry myself publicly and make a statement and take myself on a honeymoon because I've never left the country. I was so excited for that. I was going to go skydiving. I was going to swim with dolphins. I had all these plans. I had money in savings. I was ready for it. I was just about to get my passport, and COVID hit. And I went, I'm never going to do that. Well, I don't want to marry myself now. Like, I'm over it. I'm over me. I've spent enough time with me to know we're just not right for each other.
You would get a divorce by now.
And that's okay. It's okay. I'm going to love me for me. But I don't need to do that. But now I'm going to go to college. I published my book. I started a talk show with a friend of mine. I've done some epic shit.
Yeah.
This surpasses what I thought.
Absolutely, which you might not have done if you were skydiving over India. So yeah, even though you still can do that and that's still available to you, but you've now got, I wrote a book and I'm going back to college, which is also going to be in your backpack. So yeah, I think when things don't go according to plan, we just have to breathe, really, and just see that there is something down there. There's a reason why it doesn't go according to plan. Like you said, something better is coming. Absolutely agree.
That's true.
Yeah. So hold on to your britches, Karen. Something really big is coming for you, girl.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to it. And also, I remember this time when I don't remember how old I was, but I was just thinking about it today because I hike every day, and my husband and I were trying to climb, oh my God, why am I blanking on the highest mount, blah, blah, blah. It's Mount Whitney, the highest elevation in the contiguous US. we were trying to hike that. We were going the back way. So 5 days to get up to the top of this mountain. About 3 days in, my husband got sick, had an adverse reaction to the altitude medication. We had to go back. Now you can imagine the huge disappointment that we both had. That's not what we planned. We planned to summit and take all those pictures and sign the book and be like, we kicked Mount Whitney's ass, but we didn't. But what we did do was try to find a way out 3 days in backwoods by ourselves to get to safety. Like, that's the story to tell. You know, sure, you could take the pictures at the top, but the story of how we came together to get ourselves out of this really sticky. I mean, my husband was really sick. His kidneys were shutting down. Like, this was a very dangerous situation, and we found our way out together, and we still want to go back. Like, it didn't stop us. So I think that's the story, and apply that to age is, you know, sure, it might not be going the way that we thought it was going. These things have come up, COVID, you know, losses, financial things that happen, but you know what? You figure it out, you recalibrate, and you go, okay, now I'm going to go in this direction, or I'm going to go over here. And you just recalibrate and you define what 47 looks like, what 45 looks like, what 62 looks like, what 67 looks like, what 50 looks like for you. Like we just had in our beauty or a body image conversation. You define what beauty is for you and check out those segments for sure. Okay, I'm off my soapbox.
We were enjoying it. We're like, yeah.
Age is not a limit. It's not a limit. We'll do it to ourselves, but it's not. My cousin's 75 and she's traveling. Every year she does 2 or 3 trips. You know, she won't sit in a wheelchair. I mean, she's funny, but she just does it. And it's like, I was always the youngest of all the first cousins. And boy, the older cousins are getting really old. But they're still like, very young at heart, And I think that's the way that my family experience was. Like my aunt who came from Cuba and had to learn how to drive in a stick-shift Volkswagen. And she was hilarious. Like she would drive on the wrong side of the road. But you know what I mean? It was just like, you just live. She was hilarious. My mom and her they were super close, my mom and my aunt. And one day I went over there and I was, talking to my uncle because I've always liked older people. I think they're just amazing, to talk to and just be around. And my mom was laughing because my mom had this really intoxicating laugh. And I go, what happened? She goes, oh my God. I had to tell your aunt, we're not in London. Get on the other side of the road. But they came out of the car like if they were like teenagers. Laughing and blah, blah, blah. It was like, oh, you can't do that because, we're this age. No, it was just like, you just do what you feel like doing as long as, you're not hurting anybody. It's okay.
Gracie and Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that show.
Yeah.
I think with me, it's more like, finding that sense of family again. Which is, it's hard. It's hard in the city here anyway.
I think one of the things for me is that from the time I can remember, my mother, I don't think was ever really that happy in her life. And after my father died in 2000, I said, if you don't do anything, I mean, be happy. And then for her 90th birthday, we gave her a birthday party. It was the first birthday party she had ever had at 90 years. So I went through all of her photos and I found a photo of her sitting on a carousel when she was in her 20s. And she was laughing and having so much fun. And I handed it out to each of my nieces and nephews. And I said, this is what I want you to remember Grandma by, because this is how I see her. Exactly. I see that joy. Even if she is not living it, that's how I want to remember her. So, and I actually had my mother dictate different parts of her life to me on my phone. So I have her narrative of different things before she met my father. And she was like a Rosie the Riveter. during the war. And it was really pretty cool. Yeah. I've got pictures of her in her little jumpsuit. It's pretty cool. But yeah.
That's
Yeah, but
great. I love looking at old photographs too of like
yeah.
somebody in their younger years celebrating their youth.
And the stories are amazing. Like, like Irene, who's 83. I mean, you talk to her and you're like this. Because everything that comes out of her mouth is so intriguing just because of the time span. Her mother was part of the Russian Tsar, groupies, right? And her birth certificate was signed by, her mother's by one of the czars, and then she, they went to World War I and the World War II. She was in one of one of the detention camps. And she talks about when the Americans came in, and it's funny because she doesn't have an accent. She's very American when she talks, but she's talking about, when the Americans came in, and and the difference between cultures. Then they came here, to LA, and in the late 50s, and she went to to Los Angeles High School, and just telling about how it was back then there, and when I did my thesis, it was a lot of stuff based on her. It's like she saw how communication started breaking down. And people started isolating, but it was just because technology made it that way for us. It made it easier to be alone, which in the long run actually affects our mind. But to talk to her, you're like, oh my God. And then she'll come up with this stuff. Yeah, I remember, the civil rights movement when we sat at that cafe right over there at the Carnation building. And I'm like, what? Carnation, it's not there anymore. She goes, yeah, it was right there. We would go, and we sat there, and she told me the whole stuff. It's beautiful to have those stories. And I think that's what I always try and tell younger kids, to really listen.
Right.
Just listen.
Yeah.
Well, and also you're doing the thing that I think is just really great, which is you're stimulating her to tell those stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, if you've, and it's sad when you see people in nursing homes, they're just, don't get that kind of same stimulation. I mean, maybe some of them do if they have visitors, or they might have a staff that can stimulate them in ways, but not all of them. And it's just a sad thing to see, somebody just kind of wither to themselves.
Well, if you look at her and she says she's 83, you won't even mind getting there, because she's in shape. She has a beautiful shape. Yeah, the wrinkles or whatever, or the aging, which is normal, but she looks beautiful for her age. So when you look at that, you're like, doesn't really matter.
Well, you just promoted her because she's going to be in our conversation on age. So covered a lot of great stuff.
Yeah.
This was wonderful.
So good.
And it was our first time having, we've had Sixto on as our special host, and then we're like, oh my God, we have 2 guests at the same time. But I think we did pretty good.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
You guys were just absolutely wonderful guests. Thank you for your contribution. And you represented the 47 and the 67. Stay tuned next week for our continued conversation about age.